Hello everyone, this is Ukraine Today. The whole world is shocked by the meeting in Alaska, the biggest disgrace for a US president in recent decades. Putin's army is retreating. The legendary Azov stopped the occupiers near Pokrovsk. A military factory for ammunition has turned into gunpowder ashes, shocking footage. The Kremlin is preparing a new war in the South Caucasus with Ilham Aliyev and Azerbaijan in its sights. Lukashenko is ecstatic. Donald Trump has also pleased the Belarusian dictator. Putin sent his court jesters to congratulate and entertain his fellow dictator Kim Jong Un on the holiday. We'll talk about all this next. My name is Fyodor Shilenko, and let's get started. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And in the comments, let us know which city you're supporting Ukraine from. The legendary Azov is clearing out and eliminating the breakthrough. The First Corps of the National Guard of Ukraine, Azov, reports that the occupiers' breakthrough north of Pokrovsk with an encirclement of Dobropilya is gradually being neutralized. As a result of active operations in the Corps' operational zone, the enemy has suffered significant losses in manpower. 271 occupiers have been eliminated, 101 wounded, and 13 Russians taken prisoner. Ukrainian defenders have cleared such settlements as Hruske, Rubizhne, Novovodiane, Petrovka, Vesele, and Zoloty Kolodets. According to Azov, several motorized rifle and airborne assault brigades have been redeployed to the area. The 93rd Brigade Kholodny Yar shared footage of the clearing and taking control of Hruske and Vesele near Dobropilya. According to Ukrainian soldiers, the occupiers who broke through are being eliminated by robots. During the liberation of Ukrainian territories, strike ground robotic systems are being actively used. Robots equipped with machine guns fired at concentrations of enemy forces, approaching them almost point blank. Stabilization operations are ongoing. The whole world is in shock and discussing the disgrace of the US president in Alaska. At the same time, Donald Trump himself rated his meeting with Putin a 10 out of 10 and called Russia the second. You heard right, not the 200th, but the second. The US president clearly needs to visit the front lines, or at least Russian cemeteries, and he would definitely change his point of view. Of course, that's if he actually has his own opinion, and not one dictated from the Kremlin. Next, a quote from what was once the main leader of the democratic world. I think the meeting went perfectly, a solid 10 out of 10, in the sense that we got along very well. And that's a good thing when two major powers get along, especially if they're nuclear. You know, we're number one in the world, they're number two. At the same time, Trump admitted that they failed to reach agreements on some important points in Alaska, but did not provide any details. After disastrously failing the meeting with the bunker moth, Donald Trump came to immortalize his disgrace and announced that for now, he does not plan to introduce new sanctions against Russia and its trading partners.
But we shouldn't be thinking about that right now. I think it was good.
The US president added that he spent almost 3 hours with Putin, and in his opinion, it was very substantive. In a comment to Fox News, Trump noted that he and the bunker moth agreed on many points, but there aren't that many of them. So now, and here, all attention depends on President Zelensky.
Maybe they'll say no, because Biden was taking money out just like candy. And Europe gave him a lot of money. We gave $350 million. Europe gave them a lot, but there's still more.
But it wasn't just the Russian dictator that the US president has pleased in the past few days. Before meeting with Putin, Donald Trump had a phone conversation with the unrecognized president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko. The head of the White House called the conversation wonderful and also thanked the dictator for releasing political prisoners. At the same time, Russia and Belarus are preparing to practice the use of nuclear weapons during joint exercises. The so-called Russian military are once again loudly talking about Orishnik ballistic missiles. And Putin and Lukashenko have agreed once and for all on where to deploy the launchers with these missiles in Belarus. More on this coming up.
In fact, we plan to address the issues related to planning the use of the university. This is actually a very important element of our strategy. Just like with the university, the head of state has mentioned this more than once. All the decisions have been made, the location has been chosen, and the work has been done. And of course, as part of our university, together with our Russian colleagues, we are also working on issues related to planning the use of these weapons.
It's an interesting strategy considering that just a month ago, Putin and Lukashenko said that the first warhead might only appear in Belarus at the end of the year.
The first thing I want to say about this missile is that we have created the first serially manufactured warhead system, the first serially manufactured unit, yes, and it was delivered to the troops. Now the missile program continues. The first, the second, our specialists, both Belarusian and military experts, as well as Russian ones, have selected a site for the future positions, and work is currently underway to prepare these positions. So, most likely, we will resolve this matter by the end of the year.
Well, we're not Russians. We do things calmly, but we don't have time to try and move forward.
We both understand perfectly well that even if they have started serial production, as Putin said at that meeting on the bench, it only happened just recently. So there aren't and won't be any large quantities of this Orishnik. Because again, our intelligence and military experts say that it's more of a one-off product.
There are actually a lot of stories connected to Orishnik and Belarus, all coming from Lukashenko himself. At one point, he claimed he didn't know that the components were being made in Belarus. Then Lukashenko boasted that he would personally decide when to press the button.
You probably noticed that my only condition for Putin was this. We in Belarus will determine the targets, not the Russians. But you'll help us operate it since we don't know how yet. So we'll be pressing the button together, God forbid if it ever comes to that. But we will be the ones to determine the targets. He agreed.
On the one hand, the first objective is being achieved, an internal propaganda goal. Look, we're surrounded by enemies, but we have a very powerful weapon called Orishnik. So don't be afraid and stick with me with Lukashenko and everything will be fine for you. And the second propaganda objective is aimed at the external audience, which the Belarusians are now carrying out, essentially trying to scare Western countries.
The most interesting thing is that the upcoming Zapad 2025 exercises are being portrayed as very safe and even peace-loving.
There are currently more than 30 military attaché representatives in our country. 9 of them are from NATO countries. They will also have the opportunity. We are inviting all of them to observe our exercises. In doing so, we once again emphasize our peacefulness and openness, and the fact that we truly want to reduce this military tension, which unfortunately we see and feel. As they say, we are taking the first step.
Even Lukashenko himself directly refuted the rumors about where that supposed attack was being prepared from. We
have proven to all of them that we are not planning to attack you and that we will be conducting the exercises in the center deep inside Belarus.
For what purpose?
The exercises?
Yes, the changes in the exercise plans.
So as not to give you, as I already said, any reason to keep accusing us of being aggressors, of planning to attack, at the very least, the countries of Eastern Europe, Poland, the Baltic states, and especially Ukraine. On
the contrary, I would actually interpret this particular interview and Lukashenko's clearly shifted emphasis as very real and compelling evidence that such a significant military operation is indeed being prepared by the Russians, and that, let's say, they have by no means abandoned their plans or retreated from the objective of carrying it out.
As for the Orishnik, they started off, as they say, on a high note, boasting that it was the most innovative and deadly weapon, threatening to wipe the entire West to dust with it. But everyone can see how it ended, with a few isolated public statements and 0 real results.
An explosion at a Russian gunpowder factory. According to Russian media, Ukraine had nothing to do with it. The cause of the explosion and fire was the detonation of one of the munitions.
What was that? There was just such a blast.
A period of mourning has been declared in the region. 11 factory workers were killed, 130 injured. All that's left of the gunpowder factory is ashes. In the past few days, Ukraine has successfully attacked a number of Russian military-industrial facilities. The question arises, why now? In other words, what has made it possible to effectively strike these targets at this particular moment? And what does the aggressor country collectively lose as a result of such Ukrainian attacks? More on this coming up.
Huh?
Where is it exactly? An explosion in Russia is like August in Russia. Intensity and effectiveness. Every day, Ukrainian forces consistently strike Russian military targets or defense industries. As a result, they are successfully attacking unique and significant defense plants located in Russia. These attacks expose problems within the Russian Federation's industrial complex and cause panic among Russians.
The explosion will make my health worse. What should I do? Grab your things! We need to get out of here!
Thanks to Ukraine's defensive war, the only Russian plant that produced helium for missiles in Orenburg was hit. Local residents reported a series of explosions. This M5 highway was blocked. The Orenburg helium plant uses up to 15 million cubic meters of gas per year and produces helium, which is critically important for missiles and engineers, as well as in aviation. Helium plays an important role for missiles and engineers. This plant is part of the Russian industrial complex that is waging aggression against Ukraine. In Yaroslavl, a large factory was heavily involved in the production of paint and coatings, which supply materials for the Russian industrial complex. Another strategic industrial complex was located in Tatarstan. The distance from the US to Ukraine is more than 1,000 kilometers.
What is that?
Guys, I got in there!
She got right onto the seat, sneaking in from above, and precisely.
Aviation is exporting to the coating plant in Sinyaya Labuga. Here, on the territory of Labuga, is the main company that manufactures compact drones.
In the entirety of the upcoming calendar year of 2024,
there were significant plans to export the production of Ukrainian drones and drone carriers using coating components and recruiting Russian scientists to work.
There you are. There you are.
Defense forces gave Stavropol's monocrystal, having infiltrated from above. Monocrystal specializes in the chemical industry, producing synthetic sapphires for optoelectronics, which are used in the military.
It's going. We got it. Yes, we got it. Our air defense is here. Damn. Glory to Russia. That's all.
Monocrystal also produces silicon carbide, which is used in armor protection, radars, and military electronics. Monocrystal has provided defense forces for the Russian Federation. The buttocks are recording smoke on the factors. Official authorities confirm the drone threat, but do not provide information about the incident at the plant.
It's flying.
Flying. 1,000 each.
In the city of Arzamas, Ukrainian drones recently launched an attack on an associated facility targeting the plant.
One of the country's drones was intercepted at a defense complex with a 60-year history. The plant produces devices for aviation, missiles, and industry.
The Arzamas plant manufactures gyroscopic instruments, control systems, onboard computers, as well as key components for the KH-32 and KH-101 cruise missiles. In 2020, the plant was awarded by the National Association of the Industry for Military Technical Cooperation. The plant is under sanctions from the US and Europe. Before the association's announcement, the plant's equipment appeared on a high-profile resource, which is used by new national industries, indicating that the plant had received new equipment. Now the press service of the Ryazan instrument plant is surviving only in public forums and books. Meanwhile,
Putin's entourage has gone to North Korea. They joined Kim Jong Un to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the DPRK from Japanese colonial rule. One of the speakers at the North Korean celebration was the chairman of the State Duma of the Russian Federation, Vyacheslav Volodin. While the North Koreans are celebrating their liberation from the Japanese, Volodin is telling his favorite Russian tales about Ukrainian Banderites.
It is important that the bonds of brotherhood in arms, friendship, and mutual assistance forged in those distant war years remain strong and reliable even today. This was fully confirmed by the heroic participation of Korean servicemen in the liberation of the Kursk region from Ukrainian invaders. The Russian people will forever preserve the memory of their courage and selflessness. Thank you very much for absolutely everything that you, together with our esteemed President, are diligently doing to further develop the significant relations between our countries. These relations are truly unprecedented and are being implemented in practice precisely on the fundamental principles of comprehensive strategic partnership.
In addition to Volodin to entertain Kim Jong Un in the DPRK, Putin's favorite singer, shaman, and several Russian ensembles were sent. At the same time, Putin's supporters organized a clinch flash mob in occupied Donetsk. A branch of the Kremlin's Young Guard movement brought several dozen people out onto the streets with signs in the colors of the DPRK flag. The unforgettable show was accompanied by a song praising Kim Jong Un. But here is how Russian citizens actually feel about people from the DPRK. An 18-hour workday, only 2 days off a year, terrible living conditions, and constant supervision. I'm sure Kim Jong Un knows about this, but he doesn't care. The details are in our report.
They work. Go ahead.
They work on construction sites for Samole almost around the clock, not just at night, and if they were lucky, they got 2 days off a year. In 2 years, this man did not receive a single penny.
They trained us like animals, not like humans. They truly dehumanized us. Other workers constantly said that we were only Kim Jong Un's slaves. They beat us and said, "You are not people, you are just machines that can talk."
A regular worker from North Korea, Pyongyang, helps the Kremlin not only with weapons and canned food for the war in Ukraine, because as a result of the Kremlin's actions, citizens
Most of them, unfortunately, did not even possess sufficient funds to adequately cover their most fundamental and essential necessities for an entire year. However, the substantial incomes generated solely from the diligent efforts of these workers collectively amounted to a considerable sum, estimated to be somewhere between $250 million and $500 million. That was practically pure profit. So it was just a very lucrative business, and it still remains profitable even now. Now, I think the capacity of the Russian market is such that, well, it's easy to accommodate 100,000 North Korean workers. I think the main limitation is actually the number of North Koreans who are allowed to go to Russia.
Russians have long made active use of rightless North Koreans. Skilled workers from the DPRK have built quite a few properties in Vladivostok. Even this bridge across the Golden Horn Bay, which has become the city's calling card, is their handiwork. On August 11th, they celebrated 13 years since its opening. Legalized labor slavery didn't interest many people in Russia even back then.
We had no choice. We had to come here. Personally, I would have preferred to stay at home. We come, we work, and then we go back.
How did you survive here?
I don't know. We don't have any. We are not surviving.
I really need to find a job, and I absolutely have to achieve positive results. They consistently provide me with exactly that.
But human rights activists say that North Korean workers are, for the most part, strange slaves.
I've been back to this for a very long time, and I don't know what I'm doing. Of course, this is negative, because these people have the right to request refuge in statistics.
So do you think Moscow is violating international law?
Unfortunately, I'm sure of it. At the end of 2017, the international community tried to survive Pyongyang's gold mine. The UN adopted a resolution obligating all member states to repatriate all DPRK citizens working abroad within 2 years. This measure was taken to reduce the flow of foreign currency into the hands of dictator Kim Jong Un. But this didn't really apply to Russia. They simply started registering them as students. Even now, out of the 13,000 North Koreans officially brought into Russia, 8,000 of them are supposedly there to participate as students. But no matter how difficult the hardships faced by North Korean migrant workers, the chance to earn $500 a year is not something everyone in a dictatorship gets. That's why a trip to Russia has been and will continue to be a lucky ticket for the average North Korean. The chances of escaping the country are getting slimmer and slimmer, and not everyone dares to escape from Russia either. Only those with families are allowed to go abroad for work, and their children remain as hostages of Kim's regime.
The Kremlin is preparing to unleash a new war. Those close to Putin, including Kremlin propagandists, are openly discussing an invasion of Azerbaijan. Vladimir Solovyov is threatening Baku with a Russian spring of pro-Russian separatists and a redrawing of borders.
What's happening with us? We have 300 kilometers of border with Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan wants to start military actions against us. Please, I want to remind you that this territory is mainly inhabited by Lezgins. The situation of Lezgins in the territory of Azerbaijan is not the most favorable. While in Dagestan there are many Lezgins, and they are treated with great respect. Yes, there is one full general who is Azerbaijani, but among the leaders of Dagestan there are Lezgins. That is, there are Lezgins in Azerbaijan. And we can fight for the rights of Lezgins in the territory of Azerbaijan and fully support the Lezgin movement, because, to put it politely, they find themselves in a very difficult situation there. After all, who said that Azerbaijan is united? Who said that the borders of Azerbaijan are unshakable? I don't know. There is nothing more unstable in the world than a country's borders.
Such attacks against Azerbaijan are gradually becoming commonplace on Gebers TV. Meanwhile, in Baku, there is talk about the possibility of providing military assistance to Ukraine. More on the development of the conflict between Azerbaijan and Russia coming up.
Solovyov, Gurulev, and others are threatening to go after Azerbaijani entrepreneurs in Russia and possibly even carry out a so-called special military operation like the one in Ukraine.
And soon Caspians may find themselves in a situation where NATO bases could appear there. And this is so dangerous that from a geopolitical standpoint, at this moment, it could lead to outcomes that might make this an inconsistent special military operation of our generation.
If we also start putting pressure on the local parties here, those involved in some questionable businesses, then things will change dramatically. It could even become more intense. I can't go into too much detail, but there are other methods that could be used. A special military operation is very flexible. Flexible across the entire breadth of the Russian Federation.
The problem for such a scenario was the tensions between Ilham Aliyev and Nikol Pashinyan. Azerbaijan and Armenia had territorial plans against each other.
And signed a peace agreement in Washington. On the night of August 6th, the Olovka gas complex was fired in northern Caucasus, in Azerbaijan, and in Armenia. It is clear that 5 years ago and today the geopolitical situation is changing. Today the United States is acting as a mediator, and the entire geopolitical configuration in northern Caucasus is changing.
Russia will not agree with this arrangement, and in northern Caucasus a new round is expected, which the Russian Federation is anticipating. On the night of August the 6th, Russian UAVs attacked the Olovka gas complex in the Odessa region, through which Azerbaijani gas enters Ukraine. 2 days later, on August 8th, Russian drones attacked the Sakar oil depot in the Odessa region, including 4 company employees. The next day, Ilham Aliyev spoke with Volodymyr Zelensky and condemned Russia for attacking Azerbaijani infrastructure in Ukraine.
They also expressed their confidence that this would in no way affect energy cooperation between Azerbaijan and Ukraine.
Aliyev also ordered $2 million to be allocated for humanitarian aid to Ukraine.
And then there was the most recent summit in Washington. In other words, there is a geopolitical confrontation underway, tensions have arisen, relations have become strained, and now it doesn't even matter what the cause is or what the current situation is. Strikes on the airbase, on the oil depot, it's all just part of it.
Azerbaijan media, citing government sources, reports that if Russia continues its aggressive policy toward Azerbaijan's interests, official Baku will begin to consider lifting the embargo on supplying weapons to Ukraine that are currently in its arsenal. Although Russian military correspondents claim that Azerbaijan has already long since made the decision in favor of supplying weapons to Ukraine.
Given that, according to a number of sources, Baku is already ramping up production of 120mm and 150mm artillery shells for subsequent shipment to Ukraine, the decision has, in any case, already been made. The only question is whether this will be carried out openly and directly, or through a chain of intermediaries and front companies.
There have already been multiple issues in interstate relations between Russia and Azerbaijan. For example, in July of 2022, there was significant and concerning information that Azerbaijan was actively supplying various types of guided aerial bombs, specifically including potent 82mm mortars or other substantial artillery shells. This information highlighted a critical development in the ongoing situation. At that time, Azerbaijan claimed that supposedly it wasn't the Ministry of Defense doing this, but private companies, as if Azerbaijan were some kind of Germany, where private military companies can be involved in arms supplies.
Azerbaijan has openly chosen a new ally, the United States, and Ilham Aliyev is no longer afraid of threats from the Kremlin and is ready for open confrontation. If previously arms supplies to Ukraine were kept secret, now Azerbaijan plans to openly provide weapons to Ukraine to fight against the Kremlin. And Putin has in fact completely lost his influence in this region.
That's all for today. Thank you for watching until the end. Subscribe to our channel, leave a like and a comment. See you soon. Glory to Ukraine!
Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.